does this. There's this huge piece sticking out here. But I love that. No. Okay. No.
I just said we should like crack a joke. It's so quiet.
All right, let's hear your best joke.
Nope.
No, let's go. What you got?
What you got? You got a joke? What's your joke?
On the spot.
A joke is like when you tell someone like a knock knock. A joke. Like who's that? Oh my brother. You doing it? Yeah. What do you got? Ask me.
I'm afraid what's going to come out here.
Alright, I tried. Nope. Shine out. No, go back. There's M&M's on the line.
Wow.
I got you. Let me think of a joke real fast.
They might have already opened the container. Why didn't you tell me? I want a bunch of Skittles. Well, now I know. It's don't buy M&M. I buy Skittles. Skittles, got it. Okay. Skittles it is. Where I live. M&M's? You're a Skittle girl, too. Oh, both?
Good answer.
I heard that.
I can only afford to buy one at a time. Maybe for Christmas. Yeah.
All right, at 6 o'clock, we are going to reconvene
Isn't that awesome?
our closed personnel session. Do I have a motion to reconvene back into open session?
So moved.
A motion, do I have a second? Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Do I have a motion that board members certify that only items on the closed agenda session be discussed in closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. Now we're gonna have, I understand, someone help us in the pledge. Is that right? All right. That's exciting. You guys start us off, all right?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, first up, our consent agenda. Got our minutes from our general meeting and our budget session. Oh, the call meeting, that's right, okay, so our 15th and the 30th. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Recognitions, Dr. Frazier.
All right, good evening, board members and guests. I do have a few recognitions this month. First, I'd like to start off by recognizing our students that participated in the district course, and those students that placed. We are very proud of them. Also, would like to highlight our fall athletes for completing an amazing season. We also celebrated on November 8th, National STEM or STEAM Day. On November 11th through 15th, we have School Psychology Awareness Week. November 18th through 22nd, we have celebrated American Education Week. November 20th, National Education Support Professionals Day, and National Family Week is November 25th through 29th. We are also celebrating Native American Heritage Month and Family Engagement in our schools month. And our One Act students are headed to Super Regionals on Saturday. So we wish them the best, them and Miss Hammond. So congratulations to all of them. And now I'll call Miss Bird and Miss Brick up for their students and teachers of the month, or staff of the month.
So we have a student of the month for October and one for November. So our student of the month for October was 5th grader Juliana Moskowski. Juliana's teachers report that she's a wonderful role model who consistently makes the right choice. She is kind and respectful to both her peers and teachers. Her willingness to participate in classroom discussion always adds an insightful perspective to the content at hand. And Juliana is a stellar student, and we're very proud of her. And then this month, we have our RISE Student of the Month is Ella Brizendine. And Ella has been a tremendous help to her 4th grade class and teachers. She's ensuring consistency and support during her teacher's absence. She demonstrates maturity, a strong work ethic, and serves as a positive role model for her peers. She is dependable and always ready to lend a helping hand. Ella truly embodies the qualities of an outstanding pointer. And then we have our RISE Teachers of the Month for October, and that would be Miss Leslie Foster. Ms. Foster pours her heart and effort into each and every student, ensuring their academic and developmental needs are met while maintaining her high expectations. She collaborates effectively with her team and administration, consistently implementing best practices to create a supportive and enriching learning environment. And then for November, our Teacher of the Month is Ms. Bland. Ms. Bland has been named the RISE Teacher of the Month. She is a firm believer in every child's ability to succeed and sets high expectations for both her students and herself. Ms. Bland brings consistency and structure to her teaching, from well-planned lessons to effective classroom management. Beyond the classroom, she goes the extra mile as an SEA mentor and even supports the high school by helping judge cheer auditions. And so we are very thankful and appreciative to have this.
Okay, our RISE students from last month, we had for the middle school, we had Peyton Morris, who's in the 7th grade. Her teachers state that she demonstrates excellence in the classroom, works hard, always participates in class, and asks amazing questions. Last month, our high school RISE award went to 10th grader Tyler Ebersole. Tyler was described as being respectful and explained that he works to build relationship with his peers by being inclusive and kind to those who are typically not included in class. For this month, our middle school RISE award goes to Caleb Sanders. Caleb was described as responsible and respectful. He recently stood up for a student who was being mistreated in class, and he handled the situation in the correct manner and stood up for that student. So we're very proud of Caleb for that. Our high school RISE award this month goes to Jemiah Crump. Jemiah was described as demonstrating excellence, respect, and responsibility. She recently showed her kindness to a peer at school, and so we wanted to thank her, and we have, for her thoughtfulness and maturity going above and beyond to make this student feel valued and respected. And our staff RISE award this month goes to Mr. Tyler Surprisme. So I don't know if you're aware, but our staff members of the month are actually nominated by students. And so a lot of these comments are coming from his students. He's described as kind and fun to be around, amazing, awesome, and welcoming. Students state that he works to make class fun and strives to be the best instructor that he can be. Students say that they can see him trying to push them to learn more while listening and being understanding. And here's a great quote from one of his students. Whether it's cracking a joke or just talking to his students, he manages to have a smile on his face every time I see him, which is so contagious. His class makes you happy.
especially because he enjoys what he's doing so much and he never leaves anyone out, which is impressive because of how many students he sees every day. So congratulations to Mr. Suppress.
We are extremely proud of our students and staff who exhibit our core values here in West Point. Those are values of rising, those students and staff members that truly rise. They focus on relationships, innovation, being student-centered, and excellence. So those are all of my recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Brady. All right, presentation. Mrs. Britt and Mrs. Gowers.
So we are excited to present to you. Ms. Gowers has brought some students with her who are going to come up and help. They're my support network. And I'm going to let Ms. Gowers lead the way. So this is Casey Juan Garcia. This is Layla Juan Antonio. Some of you may know her brother Jared. They are actually cousins. Layla was born here in the United States. In fact, I had Jared when Layla was born. Casey just arrived here a year ago, speaking no English whatsoever. How do you think you speak English now? Good. So I work with them. So I've been working on some instructional strategies with them, just to give you a little background. I currently teach first grade at the elementary school, and as well as I am an EL teacher at the elementary school. I service 10 kids. I have 4 kindergarten students. 2 speak Spanish. One is Casey's little brother. They are level 1 on the WIDA scale. 2 Vietnamese speakers. One is a level 1. He speaks minimal English, and my level 2 student, she speaks a little bit of English. I have a first grader in my first grade class who is a Vietnamese level 1 speaker. 2 third graders, Layla being one of them, and another little boy. And Layla is a level 3, and he is a level 2. 2 fourth graders, 1 Chinese speaking level 4, 1 Korean speaker level 3. 1 fifth grader, Casey, who is a level 1 speaker. And I also monitor 2 students who have tested out of services, but they require, after the kids test out at a 4.3 on the WIDA test, they're monitored for at least 2 years to make sure they continue to make growth in their progress. If need be, we can look at getting them back into services or providing additional supports if they start kind of slipping again. So we don't just sort of exit them and say, you're on your own. We support them for another 2 years. We can go 4 years if necessary. And service times are my first graders in my classroom. During my planning, I work with the kindergartners a couple days a week, and 4 days I have the 3 through 5th graders after school. So I'm busy, but I love every minute. So just to give you a little more background, all of the kids have language goals that are created on a team of using the general education teacher, an administrator, the parents, and myself. And we use their WIDA access test. The kindergartners, we would use their screener, the WIDA standards, SOLs, and the pacing guides of teachers. The idea is that we want to do a partnership that builds their English skills, but also allows them to access the curriculum and the high standards we have. So this actually is Casey's goal right here. And so her goals this semester that we're working on is she's going to generate and convey initial thinking, follow and describe cycles and steps and procedures, share ideas about one's own or others' lived experiences, as simple as her just telling us about her weekend. Connect stories with images and representations, identify and summarize main idea and key details, which again, these also are tying into the SOLs and the pacing guide of our teachers, and generate questions, support challenge. So from that, I then develop my lesson plans and support her in the classroom as well. So my first instructional example, this is with my 4th graders. Their goal was to clarify and expand writing in this lesson. So one of my 3rd graders took the Magna Tiles, and he told me he built Big Ben. I didn't see it at first, but then when he said it's Big Ben, I see it now. He then wrote the steps involved in building it. And so to get him through this activity, I gave him instructional supports, transitional words poster, graphic organizers to sort of record his ideas. The following week, he gave his writing there to the other student that stays with me, and that student had to try to rebuild. He didn't see what he had built. He had no idea what he built. He just had the piece of paper with the steps.
Well, of course, when he tried to build it, it didn't turn out as big then. So they had to sit together, and the second student had to help my first student clarify and expand and say, well, you didn't put this in here. And so it's hard to see, but there's little notes underneath where they added in what he should have added into his writing again to clarify and expand it, and then they wrote final copies. But I wanted to show sort of the work in progress. And then they flipped. The other student did one with the magnetiles, and the same type of thing occurred where they had to modify it. But it let them really work together to see how important it was to be very clear in what they're saying and what they're writing. This is one of my favorites, I'm sorry, y'all. This is kindergarten, and they're working in answering questions and building their oral language. As I said, most of them are level 1s. They speak minimal English. In fact, this little girl, when she arrived, the only words that came out of her mouth was, hola, hi. Hola, hi. Everybody got hola, hi. So I have been working with them a lot of modeling, a lot of total physical response using, you'll see in the one video, she uses some of my modeling. We worked on to identify colors and expand their oral language. So my previous lesson before this video was just tying in their native language of roja, red, to get them trying to learn their colors in English. These videos are about 3-4 weeks apart. So the first one.
Brittany, what color are you on? Am. On. Blue. Can you say it all together? I am on blue. Go ahead. Good.
So when she was doing this, that was my signal to put it all together. The I, when she was pointing to herself, those are all that total physical response to get it. This is about 3-4 weeks later.
What color are you on, Brittany? You are on pink. Good.
No prompting. She's got it. Which is awesome. Like for me, that's the coolest thing. Another goal that they were working on, my kindergartners, is expressing likes and dislikes. So in this lesson, again, I taught them like, I like, I don't like. Modeling, we use pictures. So prior to this lesson, we used common things they knew, colors, food, toys, to get them sort of understanding the concept. This one was right at Halloween, so it was kind of a fun one too. This is Casey's little brother.
Do you like, Jorge? Ghosts. Which one don't you like? You don't like spiders, me neither.
Again, no English when he started school at the beginning of the school year. Very, very, in fact, when I did his WIDA screener, everything was C. C. C, and I said, try to say, ¿Cómo se dice en inglés? And try to say it in English. No luck. So he's made a lot of growth too. This is Casey. One of her goals is to connect stories with images and representation to add meaning and summarize key details, main idea. So in this lesson, I work with her 5th grade English teacher who gives me her weekly reading stories. I do not have access to the questions. All I get is the passage. And my goal is to pre-teach Casey any vocabulary that's going to inhibit her from being able to understand the story, and then also work on sort of the sequence of the story. And so with that, I pre-teach vocabulary with her. We work on story sequencing, which is one of her skills. And in this, she's had posters. You can't see it, but she has a poster, let's barely see the corner, with those phrases of first, next, then, last. And then after she finishes her writing, a strategy to make sure that she's hit all the key points is she then takes a highlight and highlights those words to make sure that she's gotten all the parts that she needs for summarizing that story. Okay. And my last, here's this Layla. All my 3rd through 5th graders right now are working on a PowerPoint. All of them have a goal to develop emerging research skills to build knowledge for reports. So in this lesson, the kids picked a topic they wanted. Actually very interesting. Layla's doing cats, Casey is doing rabbits. My 2 4th graders, the Korean and the Chinese student, decided to do it on each other and learn about each other's cultures, which was, they're awesome. The PowerPoints are awesome. So the kids picked a topic. They used books, websites, graphic organizers, question support posters. So before we even started this, I had them sort of think about using posters, like what kind of questions do I want to answer for my PowerPoint? So we started there, and so this has been an ongoing sort of, we're on about week 3 or 4 now, I think, right? We've been working on it for a couple weeks.
But they, so we decided on STEM questions, but they were the ones that went into the books and picked out the information they wanted in their PowerPoints. I had no help with this. They did the typing of their PowerPoints. They picked out the pictures to put in their PowerPoints and shifted them and put them where they want. So all I did was set up just a basic Google Slides for them. They've done everything else. And they actually will be staying after tomorrow, all of them, the 5, will be presenting tomorrow to Dr. Hauser and Ms. Roach tomorrow after school. So I'm very excited. They're a little nervous, right? He said to me, how many gonna be there? And I'm like, 8. And she's like, no. It's gonna be fine, right? No, it's gonna be fine. So just additionally behind the scenes, how I'm also supporting them, I'm daily building relationships with them, their families. Layla's mom is here. She is a phenomenal cook if you've not had her cooking. I use, people have asked me, how do you communicate with the parents? Susie and I message with ChatGPT. I send it in Spanish, she sends it back. I translate it. I sometimes send it in both. Our teachers are sending their newsletters in both languages. So we're using translating software. The Donovan Group has done our flyers for all of our engagement activities that we've done with the families. We had our international potluck last week. Earlier in the fall, we had our cookout, and they were essential in helping us get the flyers made and translate it in all the languages so that we could get the families here. I consult weekly with the classroom teachers on supports that they might need, or any questions or assistance they might need to help them in the classroom, or that I can help with after school. I do progress reports on their language goals, just like my regular progress reports. These guys get language progress reports each 4.5 weeks. At the end of the 9 weeks, their grades go on their goal sheet, so that allows me to see, okay, hey, they started struggling here, what's going on, let me figure out how I can help. Although most of the time I know ahead of time because I'm talking to the teachers constantly. I send out at the end of each 9 weeks a consultation sheet with the teachers to say, hey, it's the end of the 9 weeks, what are they still struggling with, what do they need help with, what can I do? And the teachers kind of plug in some ideas. I then take them to develop my lesson plans to support them. I am starting to work on their read and practice skills test, just like the SOLs. There's release questions that I can work with them so that when they take this test in February, they're not blindsided by it. They're comfortable with it. And they can really do their best with it. And then, in addition, I'm also planning and hosting family nights to encourage the family's participation in their child's learning and for us to build relationships with the families as well. And I totally forgot to put on there, but Ms. Birch reminded me. I also am in like a little mini consortium with the EL teachers in the area. So I consult with Trisha Wood in Middlesex, Heather Walsh in King and Queen. I'm very terrible names, but she's in New Kent. And we actually, Trisha started a monthly get together Zoom. I missed the first one, but I had that. But the next one is coming up in December where we're all kind of getting on and talking about sort of piggybacking off each other. So one of the things I was concerned about with my kindergarten kids was that they weren't picking up the letters in the order that the program we use does. And so Trish was sharing with me this Science of Reading program that's meant for Spanish kids that teaches a set of letters, 6 at a time, that closely match the sound of the Spanish letters. So it's SACT, S-S-A-A-T-T. So they were able, once we did that, they started picking them up. Just like, but I just was like, hey, what do y'all, this is what I'm counting on. I got you. They're like, here. So that's been amazing too. So I think that's a great opportunity. As a teacher, I really appreciate having that support network out there as I work my way with working with them. So that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers, and Layla and Casey, thank you for helping us with the pledge and for being here.
You're welcome.
Dile que gracias, que agradece por la vida de la maestra Mezclado.
Reports. SOL data update. Roach.
Oh, is it my turn? You don't want to follow that though.
Do want to follow that. So in your packet, you have an update on the final SOL scores. So when we met earlier in the year, I presented preliminary scores. This is really just to update you, because the last thing that you saw were the preliminary scores before the final results came out. And so it's posted on the website now, under our profile. So I just wanted to make sure that you had the most updated information. This information takes into account our retakes. We get additional points for students that had failed and then retook the assessment and passed this time when they got remediated. So you'll see some of that factored in. There's also students that took summer assessments that weren't reflected in the preliminary reports. So that's why you're seeing some shifts in the numbers.
At your seat, you also have a copy of our annual student growth report. So please feel free to review this as we highlight our student growth and student data from the previous week.
As a very proud special education director, in the back, you'll see that our special education students grew in almost most areas by, exceeded the where we were last year by 25%. So we're very proud of our teachers' efforts, and our students' efforts. There's also many other amazing feats that you'll see in the Donovan Group's work in terms of student progress. I think we had a really good feel of where we were in August. So many of these numbers are the same. You'll see that some have gone up, like for instance, our algebra went way up because we had some students that had not passed, and then we got additional points because they did pass when they retook. I can see some of the bigger areas that you might notice.
Looking at the, sorry, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Sorry, okay. We're looking at the 6th grade math, score. What are the teachers, I guess, experiencing? Because this would be our 7th graders currently, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what are our teachers experiencing in the classroom? How are they getting support to help with those students? Because 47% is terrible. I mean, I'm not gonna mince words, it's terrible. Which means though that now the burden is being placed on the 7th grade math teachers to try to get over half of those students up to level. And so that's a lot on our teachers, and that pressure will come down to the students as well. So I'm just curious, like, what interventions are we doing? What supports are for our teachers? We changed our strategies at all from previous, in particular with that group? I mean, there's some other numbers that are concerning, but with that one in particular.
Absolutely, we've done a lot. So I actually, for that question, I
Oh,
would
tag
actually
in.
like Dr. Hauser and also Ms. Bird to come up and.
We didn't just storm the
talk
receipt.
about-
Dr. Reed was like, "Oh, Sarah. Hi, Stacey."
That's right, and
So-
talk about some of those changes that have been made, and some of those changes that we've made were discussed in our math instructional video that was posted last month. So, they can, Dr. Hauser and Ms. Bird can share some of those things.
So that's a great question and something that we've given a lot of attention to. So with 6th grade this year, because that is the year that we've seen a terrible pass rate, we have flattened the numbers. So all 6th grade math classes have between 8 and 14 students. All 6th grade students have 2 or more math teachers in their room. The 3rd third being the special educator. Those students also have access to All In. We've also thrown our strongest math-based team at middle school math in general to make sure that our most experienced collaborative educator is with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in math. We continue with All in the spring, and that is a program where you can access a teacher one-on-one with a student or in a small group to close those gaps. Also, for the first time we've had trouble with 6th grade math, finding a teacher, keeping a teacher, and now we have a teacher who understands elementary and all of the foundational practices, working with our 6th grade students and Mrs. Foster. So we've really tried to circle back around with all of the support that we possibly can. Also, if you recall, that 6th grade number is a bit tricky because the top half of the class moves to 7th grade math. So it's the lowest half. So that's still not great, right? I mean, we would want more than that. But when I asked some of our neighboring divisions, like, how do you do that? So for example, Middlesex, like, how did you get 80% pass rate with 6th grade? They said, we don't accelerate students until 9th grade. And how they do that, I said, well, then how do you do that and get them ready for dual enrollment or, Pointer Prep, the associate's degree? And they said, well, we have a block schedule. So they can take Algebra 1 first semester of 9th grade, Geometry 2nd, and they matriculate that way for acceleration. And we don't do that because we have a 7th-day period, which is one reason why we're working with the VCU Capstone team to see if we're doing right by the students. So we've been a little more careful when we've selected students for acceleration. Because if you're going to go with that model, Ms. Sturts, of accelerating to 7th grade, then you certainly need to be able to put some things in place for those students who are in 6th grade. And that's been a struggle because our model limits what we can do as far as holding students, into a certain grade level. So I don't know if I've forgotten anything, but we certainly see the problem, and we've continued to evolve and change and respond, evolve and change and respond. And I really feel like this year we really have the things in place to make a difference. It's still hard. It's still a hard test and a hard transition. But even what you heard last month with Pointer Prep, getting the kids into middle school mode, we hope will have, a positive impact on just their transition. Like, they know how to use Canvas. They know all the things that we didn't teach them until later in the year. So,
and I think too, I really want to credit Mr. Cole for his leadership, because when we can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So a lot of the changes that we made this year were a complete change from the way we use our personnel. And I do appreciate Dr. Frazier. When you look across schools, like, to say we want to flatten the numbers, I only want 8 to 12 kids, 8 to 14 kids, and I want 3 teachers just about every period in every classroom. Like, that's really kind of unheard of, and that's a big ask. And my other request, we have to have our most experienced teachers with our neediest kids. And so it's really cool to go down there and see Mr. Cole and Ms. Foster. Like, you don't know whose class is whose. Sometimes they teach both classes together. We have a special educator. They split them into 3 groups. It's very fluid. It's now based on need, like where every unit, what kids need and what they don't need. So I expect to see an impact in the final scores, but what we're seeing, we're really expecting, is the growth in number sense, and those things that kids struggle with, because the jump to 6th grade, now you're going from a lot of computation to pre-algebra, and I don't know if anybody's ever taken a practice Math 6 SOL. I would recommend it, because I failed it. Several years ago when I first started, I'm like, oh, why are we failing the Math 6 SOL? But I took it and I'm like, oh, yeah, we are. So I think we took some really drastic measures because, while we are doing really good with our accelerated students, our students, no matter where they are academically, they need to understand Math 6, Math 7, Math 8. And so I'm just looking forward to seeing the kind of growth and some results from this, because it was some drastic changes, and I appreciate Dr. Frazier's support and Mr. Cole particularly, because it's different. What we did was different. So.
How many of the students are taking advantage of the one-on-one with the teachers?
The all-in tutoring. So, how many did we have come? At middle school it's hard because we can't require it, and they have that choice to get on that bus.
I think it's very much like what we talked about last year, but we have to think about who's coming and not who's not coming. So about 50% of who we invited are coming regularly, which is 50% more students than we had access to after school before.
Yeah.
And that's involved a lot of communication from all of us, and
snacks.
And snacks, yes.
Food will always get
Right.
Yes,
Exactly.
and sometimes there are beautiful, wonderful reasons why students can't come. They take piano every Tuesday, or they go to a dance class, and that's a chance for them to be so successful in another arena. So we don't want to say, well, don't do that. Come for come for this. But if one student comes, that's one student who is going to make a difference to. And it's interesting because we all know every student, and so we can put faces and names to everybody on the list. So when we have 3 show up, it's a victory. When we have 15 or 30, it's a victory. But I think it will always be a struggle, Ms. Reeves, to get a higher attendance. And quite frankly, like, some of these friends suffer through school. So who would want to stay and work one-on-one with your math teacher for an extra 45 minutes when you're exhausted from trying to keep up with your day? So there's that too, like some fatigue. But they're trying, like the teachers are trying to mix it up a little bit. I know Mr. Cole and Mary Foster laugh at each other all the time because Mary's like, let's do this, and Mr. Cole's like, I don't know what's going on, but okay, because she's doing these elementary strategies, and they work for and the kids are loving it. So anyway, I wish I could report that we're now at 75%, but even with all of us calling, it's still at about 50%. But it's still 50% we didn't have before.
So that all sounds great. That was 6th grade, right? So what are we doing for the 7th graders? Because the scores here, right, are the current 7th graders. Is that right?
Correct.
These 6th grade scores. So the current batch of 7th graders, only 47% of them passed the 6th grade.
So they're the same type of model.
Same type of model. Okay, that's what I was.
Right, and the same like most qualified people,
Okay.
special educator who's most collaborative, the all-in, the flattening the numbers, all of that is the same. I'm sorry.
The same teacher.
That's okay. No, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
The same teachers that teach 6th grade also teach 7th.
Okay,
So they're
okay.
all working
I
together.
thought that's what you were saying, but I just wanted to clarify it. And then when you were talking about, so I am not a math teacher, I'm a history teacher, but I speak to math teachers. And this is an issue with kids not knowing the foundations of math in the high school level, because that's where I teach, is an ongoing problem. And the number one reason that other math teachers tell me is because we accelerate them too quickly. We're having kids skip math when they just, like a level of math, when they just shouldn't skip it. And I said, yeah, like when I was in school, just a long time ago, you didn't have an option until 8th grade, and then either you were pre-algebra, you could do pre-algebra or algebra. There's only one section of algebra, anyway, whatever. So I think that we do need to relook at, we don't need to bump them from 6th grade to 7th grade math. Just let them do 6th grade math. Let them do 7th grade math. Maybe 8th grade is when we give them the choice. But Yeah, the pointer pathway is great, so don't get me wrong. But if our goal is to have students who know the material and can be successful, then the pointer pathway is just icing on the cake. It shouldn't be our end all be all. We need to make sure our kids have the foundations that they need. So I think we need to revisit that. What about, I'm assuming with our new reading program, we're hoping to boost those elementary school pass grades for reading. The 74, 70, 74. I mean, I'm assuming we want them higher than that, right? Like, okay,
We always
all right,
want
yeah.
as high as we can get them.
So I know we have the new reading program. What about geography? That's a history teacher here. That's 60%. Have we done any kind of interventions at the high school level for that one?
And keep in mind that that number is students who failed world history.
Okay, Right.
So it's a really low number there.
okay.
So that would be like, for example, this is close to it if not correct, but that would be 6 out of 10
Right.
passing the second time. So that would be quite good for a student who doesn't have a successful track record. It just looks kind of crazy right there because it's a small, it would have a star next to it, like insignificant, because it's such a low number. And again, we want all students to pass every year. But knowing our students and knowing some of the content, having 4 fail is not what we want.
Right.
But like looking at a bell curve, that's more than amazing. Because really statistically we should probably have a few more fail. Just because 4 having a bad day or not matching, not mastering the content is really not bad. But we want those kids to pass or get a different sort of credit, that sort of thing too.
And some of those students are able to access credit accommodations. So it may look like the 60% here, but after we apply for a credit accommodation, they will be able to earn their verified credit to go towards their senior diploma.
And have we looked into doing the PDAs versus the SOLs for the high school?
We have talked about it, and we should probably talk about it more. I think I don't want to say that this is off the chart amazing, but usually when your scores are pretty strong, you don't explore that as much. But we can always these are things we talk about all the time, so we can always talk about it some more. Because we do them in years that they don't have an SOL test, so we know how to do them. And a lot of students can really show they're learning better in that way than a test on one day during one time. So point well taken. I mean, we can continue to talk about it.
We've typically done them in the middle grades,
Yeah.
typically, but yeah.
The only other thing that you brought up that I wanted to mention is, so now in 5th grade, we are pre-teaching Math 6 during intervention block. Because those are students who don't need an intervention in math or reading. So, but to your point, that's new. So they weren't pre-taught 6th grade math before going to 7th grade math. Their teachers filled in the gaps and they were able to catch on, but that's an example. Because we talk about this all the time as a leadership team, like who are we? So for years, who we were is we had 80% on pointer pathways, or we had 90%, and that's who we were. People moved here so that their kids could have that. But who are we really? We want all kids to learn and be successful. So having those different pathways, if you can accelerate, go for it. If you need more time, don't feel pressure to go flying, too fast through the middle grades. And that's difficult in a school system this size because you have a pathway with just a few kids on it, and you need a different teacher for them. But point well taken, for sure.
Can I throw in a comment about the master schedule?
Of course.
I think we'll have PTSD from the master schedule.
Yeah.
We really took to address like math 6 through 12 and to really focus in on the success of our special education students as well. The master schedule, believe it or not, really sets it up instruction and sets up kids for what they need. So the team worked really hard, and there was, I'm not gonna lie, there was some bumps in that road and some large potholes. But to make special education and math were the drivers in creating this master schedule, because you have to prioritize what needs to be prioritized within that. So there was a lot of give and take, and it's not perfect by any means, because like we don't have all the money in the world and all the people in the world and that kind of thing. But I think the team did a really great job with moving personnel and moving classes and ensuring that special education students and math students were scheduled first and prioritized to kind of drive the instruction for the school. So I felt like that was a good strategy that we used. Again, not perfection incarnate. And you know, it was definitely a process, but I think we were able to make that work to our advantage for kids, for our highest needs kids in particular. So,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Policy revisions under study. Is there anything?
There's another set of policies, for you all to review. If you have questions on those policies, send those to me. And if not, if there are no questions, we have our December meeting, and we'll move those to an action item and approve those policies.
Action items. First up, consider approving our expenditures and receive revenue reports. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. Likewise, do we have a motion to consider approving our cafeteria expenditures?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. Personnel, do I have a motion to approve our personnel recommendations?
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the motion carries. Let's see, donations, do we have? Okay, I didn't see it, all right, no donations, okay. Cell phone policy.
You have a draft policy in your packet. That policy focuses on the model that was provided from the state. And it's consistent with the conversations that we've had. The policy does include the definition for cell phone, and it also includes what those smart devices may be. Devices with Bluetooth speakers, headphones, earbuds, radios, digital recorders, electronic games, MP3 players, iPods, smartphones, smart watches, all of those things would not be allowed during school.
I love the last part of that. And other future personal electronic communication devices with the aforementioned characteristics. Covering all the bases there.
If approved, we would begin communicating that out to families.
We kind of unpacked what implementation of this would look like as far as for implementation, enforcement.
So we will be working with the team, especially in secondary school where they have more concerns. We will be rolling out as much communication as possible. And then we look at enforcement. We have updated the consequences that are in the policy. Those consequences will also be rolled out to families. Our student code of conduct will be updated to reflect that. It's gonna take a lot of communication. It's gonna take a lot of communication to make sure that this can be enforced.
Are there any material differences between our existing policy and the DOE's policy other than lunchtime?
Lunchtime is the main difference. The consequences are different. Our policy allows several more chances. Our current policy does. This policy does not. Our current policy does not necessarily mention cell phones and some of the other devices. Smartwatches and some of the other devices. Where this policy does. This policy also addresses those exemptions and procedures for if students need a medical exemption, things of that sort are mentioned in this policy where our current policy is not.
Yeah, I said it last time. I think we've got a very fair policy. I feel like we've got a balanced policy, and my biggest issue with the state's recommended policy is lunchtime. I don't think it sends a good message to students. I think you can have your cell phone for 20 minutes in the lunchroom and still be responsible, and still have consequences if you're not. But I just think it's extreme. The bell-to-bell learning definition, I guess. That's my biggest concern.
I think in a perfect world for me, I would love to see us be able to allow, for example, 11th and 12th graders to use their phones during lunch. I think by that point in their life, they're ready to have that freedom, and they're going to have a lot more freedom very shortly after that. And I know that that's almost impossible. I get that. But if in a perfect world, I would say, gosh, could we let the 11th and 12th graders that are in good standing, could we allow them to have their phones at lunch? But I know that's probably impossible. I've struggled a little bit with this because at first I was more in line with what I understood about this. The more I've read it, the more I thought about it. I got some good information from some students and hearing from others. It just is harder to think about those students that, again, those students that are in good standing, are in a good place, not being able to use their phones from bell to bell. The older students in particular, but younger students I completely agree with based on the data that I've seen so far.
We've gotten feedback from some of our leaders within the school as far as what this is going.
So the policy was shared with the building level administrators for their feedback, and their feedback was adjusted. The only other thing that was asked by one of the teams is if we could hold off and not enforce it until second semester or even next school year. But in my reading and interpretation of the executive order, policy needs to be in place by the end of January.
So this was modified based off the feedback that we received from administrators, is that what you're saying?
Everything except for when it would be implemented. And Ms. Bird is here. If she has any other comments that she'd like to share about the
Yeah, the reason I ask is that it's easy for us to have this discussion, but you're the ones that are having to deal with this.
Right. Yeah, and I appreciate your comments because I like reasonableness. And our kids just live in a digital world, and while I agree that there's a lot of things about cell phones that are detrimental to our students, they have done really well with having them at lunch. Your comment about like letting upperclassmen use it, our lunches are mixed, except for 6th and 7th grade, our lunches are mixed, so that would be hard to enforce. And they are going into a world where, let's be honest, how many of us on our lunch hour, we're, checking in, doing our thing on our cell phone, so I think we need to be realistic about that. My team, we could definitely continue to support the lunch, but again, I don't believe that's an option under the executive order. As far as enforcement, our kids have done great. Really, I was the one who requested, like, we're having trouble with the headphones and the beats, and that needs to be included. With proper communication, we could roll it out. I had just requested a push off just because it's really hard for teenagers who have started a year as we are to, okay, now we've changed our minds now and we're gonna go this direction, and that's a hard sell for kids, but we can certainly enforce it. I liked our consequences a little bit better. Calling it insubordination after that, a lot of this is learning. They're learning how to deal with devices. They're learning how to deal with responsible use. So I just request reasonableness for this. Ms. Ball, Ms. Gay, and I have talked about this extensively. I think we need to be realistic, reasonable, but we also have an executive order that we need to follow as well. So communication will be key, and we'll do what we have to do. Thus far, the cell phone policy has been great. The consequences have been effective. Like I said, the biggest thing we've seen in the last couple of weeks is an uptick in the wireless headphones. And when you see those, they have a cell phone somewhere because it's connected. But teachers have been fairly happy to this point with how it's been going as it stands. So I don't know if that helps you or not, but that's kind of our discussions.
Yeah, that's, I was talking to Chase about earlier, is that enforcement of policies and procedures is something that we have to look at. So while I'm an advocate for cell phones, we have to be realistic about how are we going to enforce that. That's our big issue of Gloucester is 1,600 students, and it's in the hallways when they're listening to their wireless headphones. We can't go around confiscating them all. So but I think it's going to be a difficult experience for the children at first, but I think in the end they're going to be fine. They're resilient. They're going to be fine. They're going to interact with each other at lunch versus being on their phones, sending Snapchats and Insta posts and whatever else. And I don't know if there's much drama that happens at lunch here at West Point. That's typically where the drama starts at Gloucester, so it could cut down on. So-and-so was talking about you in math class today, or whatever, so, I don't know. I think if this is the guidelines that we have, then this is what we have to go with, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It's 20 minutes less, it's not hours, so.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think we have much choice. I disagree with it. I don't think it's right. I get it, but it shouldn't be one size fits all. We shouldn't roll out something that says this is what every single school has to do in the state right now. We were proactive with this. We started this 2 years ago. Yeah. So I guess I'm just venting my displeasure for the fact that we don't have much room here to be reasonable. It's fair to say. It is what it is. But it's just frustrating because it's not. I don't think it's what we would choose to do. It's obviously not what we chose to do. So.
And looking at some other policies, I think some folks went even more to the extreme, and they won't even allow cell phones in buses. I could not support that. So we would still allow our students to
Anything else? And is this, we have this as an action item, right? So
It is an action
Yeah,
item.
so-
It is an action item, but if the board decides that they want to hold it off, you can.
More time's better for you, I think.
The plan is, once approved, we plan to start working with the Donovan Group on all communication angles that we can, to update our signage within the buildings, to get communication out to families. If Mr. Leach needs to star in the video to talk about it. We plan to do all the things to make sure that folks know and know when this means.
I know there's consequences for the students, but I know in the past we talked about the teachers being consistent. So what if you have a teacher that's just, okay, you're finished with this, I'm okay with you pulling it out of my class. Are there consequences for the teachers? If we're gonna enforce this and it should be fair across the board.
And so, yes, those will be all the conversations that we have to have, to make sure that the building principals have tools in their toolbox to address those issues. And that is communicated with teachers, because you're right, Ms. Rice, that is something that has been said from teacher to teacher, that the policy has not been followed consistently.
And that's a school-to-school issue, that's not just a West
Oh,
Point
absolutely.
issue, just so y'all know. Yeah.
It's actually in the policy about staff not letting them use cell phones for their instruction time, so that also adds some teeth to that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was gonna say, the policy says teacher and staff should model appropriate cell use, and what is appropriate? Just saying that sometimes people need a little more guidance than appropriate, because what's appropriate for me may not be for Elliot and vice versa.
If this policy revision was approved tonight, what would be the plan for the rollout as far as the timetable? Is this, we'd be making a change to the policy, but really rolling it out January 1, or would it be immediately revised and applied?
No, we would not do a rollout of the policy until students return to school on January 6th. I think that would be unfair and unreasonable to think that we can roll this out effectively tomorrow.
Okay.
Students are going out the division's closed for Thanksgiving break next week. We'll come back for a few weeks and we close for another 2 weeks. I think we need time to effectively communicate the new policy to parents, students, teachers, our school community.
All right, anything else about cell phones? If not, do we have a motion to approve the cell phone free policy?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And all that opposed, motion carries. Next up, a meal charge policy.
Yeah, so this is an update to our current meal charge policy. The reason that this policy was pulled out from the other policies is because we just, our cafeteria school nutrition department just finished a federal review, and these changes needed to be made to the policy. It is a standard policy that the federal government has in place, and these changes have to be made in order for our federal review to be closed out. There were very little findings, so this was one of the findings, and so we just need the board to approve it, and we need to give them the date of the meeting and the minutes to say that it was approved by the board.
So just the underlying part is the change, right?
Federal government safety officer.
Can't go a la carte.
Okay.
And when I met with the person from the state, they were adamant that we had to
Bureaucracy.
have it approved. They want a copy of the meeting agenda to know that it was on the agenda and the board.
Okay.
All right, who wants to motion this one?
So So moved.
Their names, all right. We have a motion to update the meal charge policy. Ms. Sturts' motion. Do we have a second? Anyone else want to get in the minutes for this? Show it to the auditor. Second, Mr. Evans, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. We are federally compliant now, Dr. Fraser.
Thank you so much.
All right. Any informational items, Dr. Fraser?
So you do have several items in your packet. One item that you will see is a potential fragrance-free policy. As you know, you may remember that issue was brought up from a teacher last year, and there was some conversation at that time. The board said that they wanted they just wanted the buildings to be able to enforce the expectation. Well, the teacher has circled back and really would like the board to approve a policy. The building leaders are still enforcing things and reminding staff of when there is a concern with fragrances. But we provided a sample policy under information. So if that's something that the board wishes to do, can let us know. We can move that to an item under review or under study, or we can move it to an action item if that's the pleasure of the board. The other thing I have for study, you may have seen the email yesterday about the survey from the ECU, the Capstone Group. So we do have a Capstone Group. We are proud to be able to partner with ECU. As I shared with teachers yesterday, since I've been in the division, since Dr. House has been in the division, we both have completed our doctoral work. And in completing your doctoral work, you always need to go to do your research somewhere. And so we have partnered with ECU. This is a topic that has come up before, and so we just figured we let them do some actual research to provide it to us. Just looking at school start times, at intervention times, at scheduling models. So we met with the staff at the secondary school yesterday, gave the staff an opportunity to take the survey. Several staff members left the library saying, thank you for giving them the opportunity to take a survey rather than us just start conversations about changing schedules without them having a voice. And so the Capstone Group would like to hear from board members as well. They would like board members to take the survey, and they also would be open if board members are open to doing a focus group. They would be open to speaking to board members to get perspective from board members on their thoughts on schedules as well. Lastly, earlier today, I was not able to make it, but Region 3 did hold, Region 3 superintendents did hold a legislative summit with our local officials. So I will be sharing those legislative priorities with the board, just so you can see some of the things that from our rural area, some of the things that they discussed with some of our delegates as we look forward to the General Assembly starting in January. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Our December meeting will be.
Here's some delegations.
Oh, I've skipped delegations. I apologize, Mr. Reed.
That's my fault.
All right, first up, Katie Gibson.
Gonna get y'all excited about history
All
for
right.
a minute.
Yes.
So if you could just
History.
state your name, where you live, and then you have three minutes per topic.
So I'm Katie Gibson. I live in Aylett, so I'm up the county, but I'm a West Point graduate. I am on the King William VA 250 committee. The Virginia 250 started as a group. It's nationwide. 2026, we're celebrating 250 years of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So Virginia has a group, and then each county has a group. And so King William has put together these timelines, and Sam Drury, who some of you might know, was instrumental in putting this together. And this is a prototype of something, a timeline that we would like to hand out to all students in West Point and King William, 4th through 12th grade, to get them excited about 2026. And for those of you back here, we have this lovely timeline. And then on the back, there's activities. There's tic-tac-toe, maze challenge, and a word search. And it is dry erasable. So students can write on the back, and erase it and do it again with their friends, whatever. This project has composed of like a lot of different community partners that we have in the corner. So putting together this timeline of all of the history of the county, from pre-contact up to present day, we have annual events like the Upper Mattaponi Powwow, Craft Carnival, and the Christmas on the Town are listed as events for people. I think this is a great way to engage with all of the history of the county. I also serve on the West Point and King William Historical Societies, so all of that is involved here. King William is uniquely situated with 3 indigenous tribes. We have the 2 oldest reservations in the U.S. And so I think that's really special and something that's highlighted here in this timeline. It is kind of, I would say, important for 4th through 12th grade because we just want to reach as many students as possible. And 4th grade is when they start learning Virginia history. So while I would say some of this isn't necessarily on a 4th grade reading level, it's a lot of information. But they can go home and learn about it, and then, do the activities that are on the back as well. So I think the goal for us is just to bring it to the school boards, get approval for this to be passed out to students in 4th through 12th grade in preparation for 2026.
Awesome. Are you involved with the Mobile Museum at all?
I'm not actually. So they are currently hiring somebody for the VA 250, and we are doing, in 2025 we'll have the 300th anniversary of the King William Courthouse. So we're hoping to have them there, and then in 2026 for the VA 250, we'll have them at the courthouse again for a big celebration there.
Well, thank you, Ms. Gibson. Appreciate your time tonight.
So if the timeline is approved, I would just need numbers of how many students we have from 4th to 12th grade. And the VA 250 is doing all of the fundraising for these as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to the timeline going out to students? So we will,
For me.
we will get you numbers.
Thank you.
Your history.
All right, thank you. Molly Booker.
Sorry.
I'm a very candid speaker, not closed speaker. Molly Booker, what else did you need from me?
Name and address.
Oh, 2740 Odeon Street. I have high schoolers, and I appreciate everybody's focus on academics. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit on my feelings, and I want to first thank you all for serving on the board. I know it's a big task, and I appreciate all the efforts. And I also want to extra thank Dr. Frazier. I feel like I have a really wonderful relationship with him, and he's one of my candid speakers. Very upfront with him. And I love his drive and eagerness to learn what's going on and figure out ways to fix those and clarify things when I'm confused, because I am a big question asker. So with that being said, I feel like the same level of support does not exist at the school. And I know there was kind of comments about, what are we doing for the teachers when they don't follow policies appropriately. I speak up a lot, see something, say something is a slogan that we push on our kids, and I do the same thing with my own kids. Because if not, somebody's not going to know. Most recently, an entire school was let out without a notice sent to the parents, and one of the comments that I was told that came from the principal was that it was only a few minutes. And unfortunately, a few minutes is a lot of time for something to happen. And a few minutes seems like a lifetime when you're searching for your kid, which apparently is what happened for one of the parents. story I got was that it was, kids started getting let out at 2:10, and that's over 25 minutes. It's not a few minutes. And I don't see any communication where that was, I guess, really apologetically, or addressed by the school level. And I think that's a concern. I try to extend a grace in situations where I bring up concerns, but I do expect the decency of those concerns to be addressed and discussed and acknowledged. I like candid conversations. I like having those one-on-one conversations with people. I've come into many recent issues over the past 4 years of my, mainly 4 years I've been focusing on a bunch of issues, and I'm told my concerns were discussed with me when they weren't, or I don't receive responses, or it's the same thing I'm running into over and over and over, bringing up issues. And one comment I was told was, I can remind them, but that's all I can do. Well, no, that's not all we can do. If there's policy in place and the coaches or the staff members or the teachers, it needs to be followed. Some items continue to go on without being changed, and I can reach out constantly. I'm like a chirping bird in the background of the school. Issues of communications with athletics has always been a focus of mine. Kids are left with not knowing where to be. Parents don't know what's going on. We've also run into teachers who have told my students to look up answers on AI, or to try harder, or to figure it out when they've asked for help. And typically that's not an answer that kids want to hear. I have been blessed with extremely smart kids. All of my kids have a 4.0 or higher. They don't struggle typically with academics, and they're very hard workers, but if they're gonna come to a teacher and ask for help, they expect the same decency to, get that assistance, without being ignored or brushed off or having to ask 10 times or having to turn to somebody else for help. And that's a huge struggle. We've also been running into issues with assignments being offered for grades and then not following through with the grade once the assignment is complete. So I'm sorry, but my kids are gonna waste time doing an assignment and put the grades in. Give them the grades. They're not there for fluff. I know my kids complain a lot that some teachers talk too much about their personal life or their opinions versus teaching. They spend all day long there. And I know my oldest would rather be at home because it takes her a few hours to do her schoolwork, whereas she's sitting at school all day long having to listen to adults complain about their day. It's draining. I can list numerous experiences, but of course I only have 3 minutes. So, I was recently told that when I brought up a issue that the concern was already discussed with me, but it wasn't. Timeline says it wasn't. Phone call dates and email dates say it wasn't. So I haven't gotten a closure on the problem from about 3 weeks ago. And it's kind of an ongoing thing. So my point is there's a massive lack of accountability and communication and willingness to address issues in the school or even to have those conversations with the parents when concerns come up. Parent involvement is vital during all years of child development. We see a lot of focus on the elementary school, and the elementary school is focusing a lot on the academics, and I feel like some of that kind of gets lost as they get older. Parents start to pull back a little bit more, but their involvement is vital. And I'm told that teachers don't communicate with parents at this level, which is fine. I don't expect a teacher to reach out to me directly. Of course, if they're doing something bad, please do. But if I'm reaching out to a teacher, I expect a response back. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So there's continued push for students to be held accountable for their actions. So why are we not doing the same for those who are responsible for their well-being every day? Model what you want these kids to do. You want the parents to entrust that the schools have their students' best interests at heart, but we can read policies all day long, but they need to be followed and they need to be enforced. And when concerns are brought up, why can't we receive the same decency to address them, to have those conversations and alleviate the Strongest kids start at home, but unfortunately not everyone has a safe space at home. So having a safe space at school and making sure they're getting that same support at school level is kind of my big focus. You know, security, making sure the kids are having decent conversations and being educated appropriately and following policies by the adults that are there. So I'm hoping to just kind of figure out a way to fill those gaps. And I know there's plenty of other parents out there that would agree. So thank you.
Ms. Booker? Right, now the December agenda. Jump to, so we have 3:45 at the high school cafeteria. And that would be when the staff presents their
Yes, that's that.
budget request, okay, 3:45. Anything else for December? All right. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.